Headspace Zoocie, it's VJ, the brother from the ancient mother, once again with another Headspace album review. Anxiety is defined as an intense distress and a radical sense of concern about one's well-being. It's a state which characterizes how every one of us feels, especially in a capitalist system where the energy and vibrancy of our lives is taken into 9 to 5s that most of us wouldn't willingly bring ourselves into, and is kind of warped into a system which basically harvests our time for its own greater agenda. So enter Zoocie Coke Dope, the dealer, one of South Africa's most illustrious trap producers slash, rappers, trappers, that's another conversation for another time. Releases his Anxiety Plus, which is pretty much an extension of the theme and concept he developed in his debut album, Anxiety. Now, he's not the first trapper slash rapper to come out and kind of declare himself in a dark, moody tone and talk about his feelings in a way where vulnerability becomes the fundamental canvas. Through artists like Travis Scott, trap music has been colored with a lot of doom and gloom that kind of ironically becomes the base palette for which all of the different colors come alive. And I like that. I like the fact that here is a generation of young people who embrace the fact that we walk on very shifty ground, and a lot of the times we're not fine, and we're not fine about not being fine. And if we follow that vortex deep and engage with our feelings, it produces a kind of exorcism moment where instead of diving out of the need to address the issues, we dive straight into them, and it becomes like a collision with our innermost thoughts in their insecure state. So Zoocie Coke Dope does exactly that, still in this kind of sequel to Anxiety. One thing I must say, Zoocci is Zoocci for a reason. His superiority lies in his production. Whereas most people reproduce trap in a kind of lackluster, monotonous way, Zoocci has production that communicates on a greater level. The drums talk with the synth, which talk with the sample. It's amazing to listen to. The hard-knocking drums are in a delicate conversation with the cold keys, which talk to the tone of the whole beat. I mean, this dude really is an artist. The way he makes his beats isn't just a chopping and configuring of different sounds which happen to sound really nice together. He literally painstakingly listens to what every instrument is saying and builds this amazing digital canvas that you could literally feel. And here he uses a lot of sound bites instrumentally as well as part of the greater backdrop. You literally feel like you are in the deep dark corridors of Zoocie Coke Dope's mind. There are echoes of Zulu chants. There are interviews of rappers speaking about the commentary of the business of art and the integrity of what it means to be an artist. You walk in this place and there's a sense of fear, there's a sense of trepidation, but through it all, the irony is that there's so much hope. The reason Zoocci has resiliently kind of evolved and grown as an artist is he might live in the world of drugged up anxiety raps, but he really is a kid with a lot of hope for himself and what he can do in himself. And I think that hope is to kind of transcend this country and tap into the greater trap mainstream conversation, which he could easily do. I could easily place this project amongst a lot of the bigger international releases that were put out there. It's literally on that standard, on a qualitative level. And am I proud that a South African can make trap music at that scale? Hell yeah. Although I must bring it and bait it back to my favorite frustrating conversation. authenticity. What does it mean if Zoocie Coke Dope is incredible as a reproducer of the trap dynamic, if in the music in and of itself you can't find something which easily identifies them as a South African? I don't know. I don't have the answers to these questions, Sway. The only thing that I'm saying is that it's worth thinking about. But when we go and examine the project, 7 tracks, very brief, not bloated at all, scattered with these cold keys, and like I said, the album feels very blue and purple and dark and somewhat cold. It's the kind of thing you'd play if you were trying to kind of energize your soul and at the very same time kind of have this ecstasy about the moment of your own reckoning in a car, in the club, or whatnot. There's something undeniably spiritual about this project, because as monotonous as a lot of the lyrics are, as expected and as typical and as tropey as Zoocie Coke Dope's punchlines, setups and patterns are, he speaks from his heart. The vulnerability is clear, and the emotional depth is something that you can't doubt. He is somebody who gives us his heart in his music, and his heart might feel foreign and Americanized, but it's still his heart nonetheless. So, who let the dogs out? Zoocie Coke Dope's project is an incredible project which I feel puts together the greatest of what South African trap is able to do in this point in time, which is to mimic America. For me, it's a solid 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 because the production is majestic and it competes, like I said, with the greater world. And I must take that too away because there's a lack of conversation with the inner world that he navigates as a South African. I think it's also telling that in the last joint, to Ill Prelude, the Do Me feature is kind of a commentary on how a lot of old heads are also kind of opening the door for the younger generation to wander into globalism, because maybe a lot of South African hip-hop old heads haven't truly understood the value of what they're bringing as well, and how we can translate our South Africanness. And I do claim that there's a monolithic South Africanness, how we can put that across in the world. But in a nutshell, 8 out of 10. Zoocie Coke Dope, definitely a champion of his generation, definitely a sign that AMA 2000 are the expression of global syndication, obsession with international trends, and most importantly, the fact that South Africans only believe in themselves when the world does. Is that a problem? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's a symptom of a greater pattern. Maybe it's something we need to look into. I don't know if I need to look into, but I do know that it's something there and it exists, whether for examination or purely just for observation. Zoocie Coke Dope transcends us into a world where the anxiety is spoken about, but not really in the spirit of looking for a solution, but in the spirit of embracing it. We're sad, so what? Maybe there's nothing we can do about it. And I feel it's these ellipses which are drawn in the conclusion of this project. Zoocie Coke Dope is gloriously sad, and he's fine that way. He's sitting in his production studio, having some lean, probably sniffing coke, having the time of his life. Are we gonna judge him for it? Sure. Is he gonna live his life? Definitely. Is it great music at the end of the day? Absolutely. My name is VJ. It's been another Headspace album review, and what I always try to do is understand the artist and their vision. Zoocie's vision is clear. He's an artist blazing into a world that is beyond this country. His albums show this. This is no different. Are we wrong for wanting to alienate ourselves from the countries we come from in order to gain acceptance with the greater world? I don't know. I'm looking for those answers. Guni, it's been another amazing one. Salute.